This poem is called Enclosure. I worked for 28 years in St. Dominic's, the Dominican school on the Falls Road. And over that time, I suppose I became fascinated in a way with the lives of the women who had come to Belfast at the end of the 19th century and set up the school for girls. And while we were teaching, everything changed in those years. When I came, there were still nuns on the staff. The convent was very active, but that changed entirely. The numbers went, obviously, and after the convent closed, I went up to look at where they had lived and the little cells. And of course, over the years as well, talking to them, you heard about their lives. I was kind of fascinated by the fact that when they came into the convent, those people that I was talking to would have come in the 70s and 60s. They were still enclosed. So although they were teachers, they were not allowed to leave the grounds of the convent unless in twos and with permission. And they were buried within the grounds as well. So it's called Enclosure. One year at midwinter, we sleep over in the study hall, improbable in our sleeping bags on the parquet floor, in sympathy with prisoners in Chinese jails. We are sending Christmas cards on which we write the marginalia of Irish monks, writing in their own cells of the cold and fear and the sea swells. We picture the words reaching out into the dark places, as Amnesty tells us they sometimes do. It is our first time to stay in school, me and these lovely students who decorate the cards and chat companionably late into the night. The sisters have left the chapel open for us in case we want to pray or keep a silent vigil. I sneak in there in the early hours just because I can, sit on the pews of polished oak that bear the names of sisters long gone, under the great Harry Clark rose window that I can't see but sense in the dark above me. Candles flicker on the altar and I read someone's divine office about the siege of the gates of Paris during one of its revolutions. Above us, as we sleep, the nuns' cells on the other side of one of the classrooms I taught in, where sometimes an old sister would come into the room and startle us, a relict of another time. I remember the stories of their coming here, when the grounds boasted an orchard and hens and haystacks, and the deaf brothers from the vegetable shop on the Springfield tell me of coming in to be chased by the night watchman called Boots because of the Wellingtons he wore, come in to steal apples like the ones he now sells me, and to play in the hayfields. I imagine the very top of the house, the store of earlier lives, trunks full of what was forsaken of the world, an LP of The King and I, the gift of a beloved father, a favourite dress, a pair of shoes. One woman told me of her father dying in her first year here and how she had to watch his funeral from her window. This was Enclosure. Years later, after it is abandoned, I go back up there to see the cells, imagining their lives, some little traces in postcards pinned to walls. One told me of the shock of sharing even their monthly rags. And in the well of the building, a cloister of a kind, in which some would grow flowers in pots or feed the sparrows. And then the windows were opened and air streamed in when the women could have their own names back, only for the gates to close to keep the children in and safe from what was erupting on the road. That road itself, from Tuatha, the territory of enclosures. I would meet them pottering in the gardens, feeding the birds. One tells me the achievement of her life was to have pegs placed at the height of the little children for their coats. They speak of their careers in far-flung places like Peru, South Africa, Louisiana. I think of the cloister of the brain, the beautiful looping cloisters of thought, the seats of attention and consciousness, and how we make the connections we do. These girls and me sending messages out into the snowy dark.